a great pleasure to welcome you to our post-election analysis, together with IPDAL, our dear friends from our partner institute IPDAL here in Portugal. My name is David Henneberger. I'm the director of the FNF Madrid office, one of the over 30 countries around the world where the Friedrich Naumann Foundation works. We are the liberal of the German political foundation, committed to liberal values, of course, human rights, the market economy, free trade, and liberal democracy as such. I had the pleasure to reopen our office in Madrid after we had two after the Franco regime in Spain at the end of 2019. I also have the great pleasure with my team that Portugal and Italy, but especially Portugal, are also part of our project. And I cannot even count how many times I have been here, like probably 20 since COVID. And the fact that we are here today with our colleagues from across Europe, because we have our regional meeting here in Lisbon, with colleagues from Germany, from Brussels, from Prague, and from Geneva, is a sign that Portugal is more important for us than ever. Yeah, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, I want to give an extra applause to our dear friends from IPDAL, to Paulo Neves, who is again elected parliamentary. Gastão Campos, the Secretary General of IPDAL. You're so young and already doing such a fantastic work. I think you're president of Argentina one day. And of course, Manuel as well from IPDAL, who is always supporting us together with our team. So it's a pleasure and a true honor to be able to working with you guys. I already mentioned the importance of Portugal for our foundation. We even had an academy here in Sintra, which we had to close, unfortunately, in the 90s. I would have loved to go. But probably you're also an alumnus of our other academy, like our international director, Dr. René Klaff. A warm welcome also to you. Thank you for being here. And of course, Gisela Pilz, former MP in the German parliament, and now a member of the board of trustees of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. Thank you so much for having come to Lisbon. It's a big sacrifice on me. So we are back in Portugal, and we are also back because it's no surprise that we are a liberal foundation and that we work with our liberal friends here in Portugal from Iniciativa Liberal. Anna, Antonio, thank you so much for being here. And I was at the election party on Sunday. It was fantastic. And it was really emotional. And to see you enter the parliament with the same number of parliamentarians after so few years of existence was fantastic to see. And we are really proud that the European Liberal family is really proud of you. And we will continue supporting you and learning from you as well, because you do many things greater than we do in Germany, honestly speaking. So this interchange of ideas, of best practices is fantastic as well. Obrigado. Of course, the election results are, from a liberal perspective, somewhat also complicated, to say the least. We were always talking about the Iberian exception. We saw the rise of Podemos and Vox, especially in Spain. Now we have Chega. Some people told me maybe it wasn't really an Iberian exception, it was rather a late coming, so to say. The Pyrenees are high, so maybe it just took them a little bit longer to get to the Iberian Peninsula. But now we have to deal with it and have to see how we can defend liberal democracy and form governments, stable governments in an ever more fragmented political space. Not an easy task. I'm also here not to answer that question. This is one of the advantages of my job outside of daily politics. So I've spoken enough. I thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank again my team who supported us extremely, or supported me and IPDAL extremely for setting this up. Carlos in particular, who is there. Thank you, Carlos. And let's have a very interesting and fruitful afternoon. I mean, the timing could not be better. 2 days after the election, I want to learn a lot. Thank you so much. Obrigado e parabéns, IPDAL.
Muito obrigado, David, in Portuguese. Queridos y queridas amigas, quería hacer una introducción muy breve antes de hacer mi intervención en español porque tenemos muchos embajadores de América Latina y decir que estoy muy contento con el grupo de embajadores, de amigos que estão con nosotros. Bienvenidos a todos. Uma saudação também a todos os membros do IPDAL que estão aqui presentes conosco. É um gosto, naturalmente, vos ter cá. Uma saudação muito especial ao Dr. René Claff, diretor do Departamento Internacional da Fundação Naumann, Gisela Piltz, membro do board da Fundação Naumann, Jules Matten, diretor do Diálogo Europeu da Fundação Naumann, aos meus queridos amigos ambassadors, thank you very much to be here, it's a great pleasure for us. Também um cumprimento muito especial à Inês, à Maria, ao Miguel, a todos os que vão também, Maria, que vai estar aqui presente também para o Partido Liberal. Dear all, welcome to Lisbon and to this wonderful initiative. Dear David, my friend, director of Naumann Foundation office in Portugal, spanning Italy, but in Portugal is more important. Dear friends, it's a great pleasure for us to welcome you all to Portugal for your annual initiative. IPDAL is extremely proud to participate in this initiative with the Naumann Foundation. We have a very close relationship with your foundation, you know. IPDAL and the foundation participate together in various initiatives and projects in Portugal. We have a major annual initiative, Africa 21, where we talk about the European-African dialogue and the major challenges facing Africa. We also have the Naumann Foundation present at the Strategical Triangle Summit, Latin America, Europe, and Africa. This initiative is very important, and you put the agenda of common ground between these three continents, which participants from the private and public sectors. The Naumann Foundation has been very important to us. And they are common themes between our two institutions like peace, democracy, freedom, human dignity, economic development, multi-party systems, and dialogue. It's very important for us. And are proud to have produced wonderful research projects with your foundation. Thank you very much, my friend David. And thank you very much to everyone at the Naumann Foundation for your presence in Portugal and for your very important support and partnership with IPDAL. It is important remembering that the Naumann Foundation has played a decisive role in supporting Portuguese democracy and has also had enormous support in the political training of many young politicians in Portugal. I was one of those at Quinta da Riba Fria in Sintra, where the Naumann Foundation gave us top quality training. It is also important mentioning in this moment, in this year that we are celebrating this 5th anniversary of April 25, the year of democratic revolution in Portugal. And that Naumann Foundation and other German party foundations played a fundamental role in the establishment of democracy in Portugal. In fact, one of the main Portuguese parties, the Socialist parties, was founded 51 years ago in Germany by Mário Soares. It's a very important fact. My friends, as for today's initiative, we are going to analyze the results of the last Sunday's election. It isn't easy, but we have a very interesting panel of politicians and political analysts, and thank you for all for accepting our invitation to be here as speakers or participants. Welcome everyone, bem-vindos a todos. una palabra muy de estímulo a todos los amigos embajadores de América Latina que están con nosotros. Yo mismo voy a partir para una cita de trabajo a Uruguay y Argentina. Es por eso que tengo que salir un poco más temprano para decir que el IPDAL se mantiene muy involucrado, muy enfocado en la promoción de América Latina en Portugal. Lo saben que tengo ahora también el regreso al Parlamento, un reto nuevo, el regreso al Parlamento, pero lo puedo hacer una garantía a todos. Me voy a quedar en el IPDAL trabajando con vosotros. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neves, President of IPDAL and Member of Parliament, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends of IPDAL and the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom. It's an honor and a pleasure to address you here with a few words at this occasion. David Henneberger has already said why we are here and what we are doing. Actually, our office in Madrid is the backbone of Naumann Foundation's work, I should say in Southern Europe, at least in Southwest Europe. And that was a decision that we've taken in the foundation a few years ago after several years of not being present here when everything seemed to be working on a democratic, free level, so to speak. But civic education, political dialogue, international relations are always of importance. So that is when we were able to come back to these countries, we did so. Portugal definitely is an important country in this context for us for several reasons. We used to have, by the way, also an office in Lisbon in the late 70s, early 80s, later than the Sintra Academy, which played a very important role in the foundation. As you mentioned, you mentioned it, that I'm also an alumnus of the Academy's work. That was in 1994, and unfortunately I can count my visits to Lisbon. I can count them on one hand, as this is my third time in Lisbon, and it has always been professional, very unfortunate. My wife told me to scout here for tourism, so that we certainly can come back one day. This city and this country has a lot to offer. And you mentioned the importance of the Naumann Foundation and its impact it had in those days after the revolution here in Portugal. I'm glad that you did, because I cannot by heart mention all these dates and facts. It's curious, really, that the Socialist Party was founded in Germany by Mario Saris and his friends. By the way, not in Bonn, not in Berlin, not in Cologne, Munich, or Hamburg, in Bad Münstereifel, of all places. And this indicates how the foundations work. Sintra, Bad Münstereifel, other places, and for the Naumann Foundation it's Gummersbach. We also like to have retreats where we get our friends together, our partners together, not just for a day or for an evening, but for a week or even two, to discuss liberal solutions, let me put it this way, on all sorts of political matters. And liberal solutions is, of course, also one of the reasons that we are here working in Portugal, even if on remote control, so to speak, because we need to learn. Everyone needs to learn, but the liberals, who are always under stress, need to learn also, and this is one of the things we want: the exchange. We want to learn from solutions of other countries. That is the gist of it. Now, this evening is dedicated, what's it called, a few days after the elections, right? From what I read, the result of the elections are not unproblematic when it comes to forming a government. In Germany, we have a different situation. We have problematic days before the elections. And I don't know what is preferable. I'm certainly curious to learn about the outcome of the elections, and I'm looking very much forward to our discussion this evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clough. Thank you very much, David and Paulo Neves, our president. Welcome, everyone, once again. We are among friends, as I always say, so it's a pleasure. I'm not going to keep you here long. I want to formally welcome Maria Castello Branco, who is a rising star in journalism, political analysis here in Portugal. And we're very proud to say that she's also a member of our advisory board here at IPDAL. So Maria is going to be giving us a little bit of an outlook and a little bit of an analysis of what is going on here in Portugal, especially for our friends from Germany, from the Naumann Foundation that are here visiting us today, and for our dear friends from the diplomatic body and people here present from IPDAL. Without further ado, Maria, the podium is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, our host, I asked for advice before writing this address. Your Excellencies, ambassadors of our partner countries, welcome. Portugal's political scene has been altered by the far-right's significant rise in these elections, more than quadrupling their parliamentary presence to become the largest third major force ever and a crucial kingmaker. Meanwhile, the Social Democrats have eked out a narrow victory over the Socialist Party, gaining a fragile lead, however. In a striking surge that has reshaped the political landscape of Portugal, the far-right faction has achieved a formidable ascent, boosting its representation from 12 to an impressive 48 members in the national parliament. This remarkable growth has vaulted it into the position of the third largest political force, as I said, establishing its position as a pivotal kingmaker or potentially a dangerous ally. In an election characterized by razor-thin margins, the Social Democrats have narrowly edged out the Socialist Party, securing a slender majority by clinching 2 additional seats. This victory, by just 50,000 votes, places them marginally ahead in the nation's legislative assembly, but it sets a new record for the narrowest victory, surpassing former Prime Minister Durão Barroso's 2002 margin of 130,000 votes. The evening commenced without much cheer and concluded in a similar vein, even amongst the winners, as the slender margin between the Democratic Alliance, AD, and PS precluded any premature declarations of triumph or concession. It is important to highlight that such close contests are unusual in Portugal. For comparison, in 2015, former Prime Minister Passos Coelho from the Social Democrats and Portas, its Vice Prime Minister, defeated Costa, the former Prime Minister for the Socialist Party, by 300,000 votes. And in 2019, the Prime Minister for the Socialists, Sócrates, outpaced Ferreira Leite by 400,050 votes. Historically, electoral wins often exceed 500,000 votes in margin. The largest Social Democrat victory was achieved by Cavaco Silva in the 90s with a 1.5 million vote lead over Constâncio in 1997, and the Socialist largest victory was Sócrates beating Santana in 2005 by almost 1 million votes. So let's get to the results. The Democratic Alliance, the center-right coalition, secured a victory and 2 additional deputies over PS, not including immigrant votes that are yet to be counted. Despite higher turnout this time, the proportional share dropped by 1.38% from 8 years prior. Luís Montenegro, the leader of the coalition, outperformed the former leader of the Social Democrats in 2022 by almost 200,000 votes, narrowing it to 100,000 more when including the Conservatives' votes from that year. Almost 2 million votes only surpassed that performance in the 2 preceding elections. Excluding the Conservatives, their tally slightly exceeded past results from Cavaco Silva in 85, Barroso in 99, and Santana and Ferreira Leite in 2005 and 2009, but not Passos Coelho in 2011 and 2015, falling short by about 200,000 votes. So despite their increased voter turnout, the number of MPs for the Democratic Alliance remains low, matching Rui Rio's MPs in 2019 and possibly reaching 81. The Socialists lost 13% percentage points and 40 MPs since 2015, a decline of almost 500,000 votes, excluding immigrant votes, which may slightly reduce their margin. This represents the second largest fall in the socialist history, comparable to José Sócrates' loss in 2009, when he also forfeited his majority. The situation could only be more dire following the 1983 Central Bloc. Despite this, Pedro Nuno Santos, the leader of the Socialists, garnered over 1.7 million votes, outperforming Sócrates' post-bailout 2011 performance of 1.5 million votes, and marginally surpassing António Costa's initial 2015 tally. However, Pedro Nuno Santos' results fell 150,000 votes short of Costa's 2019 result. With 77 MPs as of now, plus any other MP that may come from the immigrant votes, his election is among the top 5 most challenging for PS in percentage terms. The Central Bloc, the PS and the Democratic Alliance, their combined vote in this legislative session was 3.5 million, marking a low point which had not been seen in 40 years. The last time the combined vote for these two parties was lower was in 1985, post-Central Bloc, with 2.9 million votes, amounting to 58% of total elected MPs. Even with this decline, the collective performance of PS and PSD, so the Social Democrats, remains among the highest for central parties in European political systems. Now to Chega, the far right. They managed to secure over 1.1 million votes and became the most voted party in the Algarve region in the south of Portugal. Its parliamentary representation surged from 12 to 48 MPs, as I've said, and André Ventura, the party leader, delivered the sole triumph speech of the election night, urging PSD to collaborate with Chega. André Ventura's Chega surpassed his previous election performance by gaining 700,000 more votes, a 10.91 percentage point increase from 2022, beating the Conservatives' 1976 record, and PRD, one party that has already died, unfortunately, 1985 achievement, which was 17.9%. Chega's current tally stands at 1.1 million votes and 48 MPs, with immigrant votes yet to be counted, this must be said, surpassing these results. The results of PRD, they had 45 MPs. 48 is very large for Portugal. Starting with 67,000 votes in 2019, escalating to almost 400,000 in 2022, Chega's growth is unparalleled. It almost surpassed APU, led by Álvaro Cunhal, it was communist, which in 1980 received 18.8% of the vote. With the inclusion of immigrant votes, Ventura Chega is likely to get there, though. EL, the Liberals, represented here, EL's growth was modest at 0.1%, adding 50,000 votes to its tally from 2022 amidst higher voter participation. With a total of 300,000 votes, EL maintains its 8 MPs, still distant from the CDS, the Conservatives' peak performances. The party's performance is notably better than the CDS, the Conservatives, during its challenging periods and exceeds the results of the Conservatives in 2019 and in the recent past, in 2022 as well, when they left Parliament. However, it falls short of Portas, CDS, lowest mark of 400,000 votes in 2005. Despite growing in 50,000 votes, the Liberals lost 7,000 votes in Lisbon, losing 1 MP for the region. However, Lisbon is still its strongest region, The Liberals maintain its representation by winning a seat in Aveiro for the first time, in addition to holding seats in Porto, Braga, and Setúbal. The current composition of the Portuguese parliament, with almost 60% of MPs from the right, represents the third highest percentage in the nation's democratic history, trailing only behind the two absolute majorities achieved by Cavaco Silva from the Social Democrats, which was 60.8% in 1987 and 61.3% in 1991. This right-leaning assembly surpasses the share of seats obtained by Passos Coelho in 2011 and is also higher than those during the terms of Barroso and Francisco Sá Carneiro in 1980. Despite this shift, when considering majorities, the left still holds a significant lead over the right, with a score of 10 majorities to 7 majorities. Now to the left. The left bloc saw a slight rebound in votes, gaining an additional 30,000, yet this was insufficient to match its 2011 performance, following a significant drop. Despite this increase in votes, the number of MPs remains unchanged at 5, echoing only the party's early years for such a low count. With Livre, the other party on the left, gaining ground and the Communists declining, the left bloc faces a challenging outcome. The Communists experienced its poorest performance yet in the 2022 elections, dropping below its previous low in 2002. Following the previous leader departure, the party saw a further decline this year of almost 40,000 votes, reaching a new low with only 200,000 votes. This not only places it below the left bloc's results, but also marks a poorer outcome than any bloc result prior to 2005. Furthermore, the Communists now trail Livre, the other party on the left, by just 2,000 votes and has lost MPs in its stronghold regions in Setúbal and Beja. This third consecutive decline distanced the party significantly from its 2015 tally of 400,000 votes, the 500,000 mark of the 90s, and even so from the million votes of the early 80s. Currently, the Communists hold 4 MPs across 3 constituencies, Lisbon, Porto, and Setúbal. Livre was a surprise and probably the biggest winner, going from 68,000 votes to 200,000 votes is a big leap, but this rise of 130,000 is even bigger than that of the Social Democrats in comparison. Rui Tavares' Livre not only now has a parliamentary group with 4 MPs, but it also surpasses the historic votes that any other small party had, than the other small party had in 2019, which was the Animalists' PAN, which only reached 174,000 votes that year. It more than tripled its votes in Porto, almost tripled in Lisbon, where, for example, it came third in the parish in 2 parishes, and quadrupled in Setúbal. He has thus elected in 3 districts as many as the Communists, from which he was only 2,000 votes behind. He is undeniably one of the big winners of the night. The Animalists' PAN, they maintained 1 MP. And now, the next steps. Until March 20, the president will meet with the elected parties and coalitions in ascending order from March 12 to 20, it started today, following the provisional results. The schedule starts with PAN today and ends with the Social Democrats. The final appointment of the new Prime Minister will occur after the overseas constituents' results are announced. The MPs are expected to swear in by late March or early April. The incoming government will assume office following the convening of Parliament. There is no fixed deadline for its formation. The government program will be submitted also in April, and there can be a rejection motion, which requires absolute majority of the vote. This leads to government resignation. This seems unlikely, though, and I will get there. September 10, the president regains dissolution power and can call for new elections if no functioning government appears. October 10 is the deadline for submitting the 2025 budget, and end of October is the general voting on the budget, and rejection may lead to new elections. In mid-November is the earliest possible date for new legislative elections, with deadlines restarting. In his victory speech, the Social Democrat leader emphasized a firm stance with a repeated no is no regarding a possible alliance with Chega, pledged commitment to making amends with pensioners who suffered big cuts during a previous Social Democrat administration, and maintained a moderate tone throughout. Understanding the precarious balance his position requires, Montenegro needs to approach the state budget with a high level of popularity among voters, and he can do this by aiming to implement measures that bypass parliamentary scrutiny to avoid direct confrontations for the time being. With over 1 million votes, an historic achievement under his belt, André Ventura, the far right, is positioning himself to influence the Democratic Alliance in a Senate victory, holding Luís Montenegro accountable for a potential instability should there be no collaboration with Chega. In an interview last night, Ventura warned, if there are no negotiations, he will vote against the budget. The radical right leader is exerting pressure and crafting a narrative for a potential political crisis, stating, it's not Chega who brings down the government, it's Luís Montenegro who resigns from governing. There are many political scenarios that are possible, and I will list them from most likely to least likely. The most likely is that Luís Montenegro is named MP, and disregarding political alliances, the president, Marcelo, is anticipated to formally swear in the Democratic Alliance into office, a scenario that currently holds highest probability. Over the weekend, the president explicitly stated his intention to appoint the victor, irrespective of any potential majorities that might emerge. Nevertheless, the Democratic Alliance finds itself without a clear majority, having secured only 79 MPs, excluding those from the immigrant constituencies, significantly below the threshold of 116 required for a majority. The other probable scenario, although least likely in regards to this one, is that the Social Democrats and the Liberals collaborate. And this prospect of collaborations has been acknowledged by Luís Montenegro in recent discussions. Rui Rocha, the Liberals leader, too, has openly entertained this possibility, further emphasizing his commitment to stable governments on the night of election. Despite these intentions, a coalition between the Social Democrats and Liberals still falls short of securing a parliamentary majority. There also could be a Social Democrat administration, including Chega, the far right, and this would secure an absolute majority. Throughout his campaign, though, the leader of the Social Democrats firmly stated that entering into agreements with Chega was off the table. However, excluding André Ventura's party renders it unfeasible for the right to establish a parliamentary majority. In principle, this arrangement is not favored by the president. A source from the president's office conveyed to a local newspaper, to a Portuguese newspaper, that Marcelo is committed to doing everything within his power to prevent Chega from participating in government. There could also be echoes of 2015, but this is highly unlikely. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa has the prerogative to nominate Luís Montenegro as the prime minister, thereby giving him the mandate to establish a new government. However, within the parliamentary context, the socialists could initiate a motion of rejection, mirroring António Costa's strategy in 2015 against the Social Democrats' leader then, and with backing from the left-wing factions, potentially topple his administration. A critical factor in this equation is Chega. The feasibility of such a scenario hinges on whether André Ventura's party decides to align with the left-wing bloc or chooses to abstain. Reflecting on the post-election landscape, the PSD leader, the Social Democrats, addressed this possibility, expressing hope that the Socialists and Chega would refrain from forming a negative coalition aimed at destabilizing his prospective government. There could also be a revival of Geringonça, of the left-wing government. Pedro Nuno Santos, the socialist leader, theoretically could forge an agreement with former left-wing allies, the Left Bloc, the Communist Party, as well as Livre and the Animalist Party. This potential alliance was a hot topic at the run-up to the election. Nonetheless, such an alliance would still fall short of achieving a parliamentary majority. Despite this, the leader of the Socialist Party has declared an intent to transition into opposition. However, it's noteworthy that the collective forces of the Socialists and its potential left-wing partners surpass the sum of the Social Democrats and the Liberals in terms of MP count. As you can see, it's still very undecided, and I think whoever manages to reach the state budget with the most popularity will unlock the key to deciphering these elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Maria, for those insightful comments. It is very hard to summarize what has been going on in the past couple of days, and she did a wonderful job. I know our president, Paulo Neves, has to leave soon to catch a plane, which we changed, and he only has 20 minutes in Madrid, so let's hope he makes his connection.
Yeah.
Of course, yes. I'm going to invite to the stage Inés Serra Lopez, who is a Portuguese journalist, columnist, author, and lawyer. She's currently the director of the newspaper O Independente, The Independent, and works as a commentator on national political issues. Inés, in December 2020, created Mais que Transparente, More Than Transparent, a nonprofit association dedicated to fighting corruption and developing the Follow the Money Portugal project, which monitors the implementation of the funds that the country will receive from the European Union until 2029. Inés is a star journalist and political commentator, and we are very honored to count with her presence here today, moderating this high-level panel that we have. And I'm going to also invite to the stage Miguel Costa Matos, who is deputy of the Portuguese Assembly of the Republic for the Socialist Party and Secretary General of the Socialist Youth. I'm going to invite the new elected Eva Brás Pinho, who is elected deputy to the Assembly of the Republic for the Partido Social-Democrata, the Social Democrats here in Portugal, and is currently serving as municipal deputy in Cascais, which is a lovely city next to Lisbon. I'm also going to invite Ana Martins, who is vice president of the Liberal Initiative, and has been doing a fantastic job at Iniciativa Liberal, the partners of the Naumann Foundation here. And last but not least, I'm going to invite Maria Castello Branco, who is a political consultant, columnist for Diario de Noticias, and who you all know very well from her remarks. Please join me in welcoming everyone to the stage.
Hello, everybody. Is my mic on? Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation in the first place. And thank you, Maria, for your presentation. Brilliant, as always. I'm not going to present my neighbors because you all already know them and they've been presented just now by Gaston. And there's no, we are going to make a round. Each of them is going to speak for no longer than 10 minutes. That's a promise. And afterwards, we'll have some questions and hopefully some answers too. Okay, so as we are 4 women and 1 man, I guess the only thing right to do is begin with the man. So, Miguel Costa Matos, take the floor, please.
I'd prefer it if it was the only thing left to do. As a socialist, anyway. Is this on? Yes. Good evening, one and all. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'd like to thank IPDAL and the Naumann Foundation for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here just a few weeks ago with David in a wonderful lunch we had to discuss your work. And really, you do fantastic work. Even though we're not the same political family, I'd like to congratulate you all on the work that you do. And it's a pleasure to share this panel with such distinguished ladies and obviously incredible politicians as well. So yes, it was a surprising election. It was a surprising election because everyone had said that, you know, after 8 years of government, after a judicial crisis that had brought down the government, after all, we were going to see, you know, a big movement for change. You were going to see the socialists have a big crumble in the elections. The polls had been saying for weeks and weeks we were going to be in the low 20s. And that would have been real disaster for us. But guess what happened? It didn't happen. We ended up tying with these guys, the Social Democrats and their Democratic Alliance. And so really it was a big surprise for the political elite. They were blabbing in television saying that we were going to be destroyed, and they were wrong. They were disconnected from the people who have higher pensions, from the people who have higher salaries, from the people who have better jobs, from the people who are benefiting from an economy that is growing more. That is growing 10 times more than we had grown in the 15 years prior to our government. And so the surprise is this supposed big movement for change ended up in an electoral tie with the Democratic Alliance. Yes, we lost. Look, I'm here to own up to our loss. We had 42% and now we have 29%. So yes, we had a big fall down from what we had 2 years ago. We are fully aware. We are going to reflect. We have a lot to reflect upon. Why we lost so much support. And someday this was going to happen. Someday, you know, after 8 years of government, someday they were going to vote some other guy in. What's surprising for us is these guys only had 50,000 more votes than us. And now we have to sort of react to this. And it's a novel situation. Because in the past, you know, for us at least, we had two blocks, the left and the right. For a long time, when the right had a majority, they used to govern because they were sort of normal democratic right-wing parties. The center-right Social Democrats, the more conservative CDS-PP, and sometimes they team up with the royalists, the monarchists, but you know, they're so tiny nobody really cares about them. They even tried to silence their leader throughout the whole campaign because he only says a bunch of rubbish things about how women should belong in the kitchen and that sort of thing. So they don't try to give him too much voice. He did. But anyway, this used to be easy for them. It used to be easy because they had a majority in this sort of, you know, normal mainstream right. And as of 2019, the Liberals came out, and, you know, that's quite positive. I mean, Social Democrats used to belong to the Liberal family. I don't know how you guys feel about them because they left in the 90s. But we now have new Liberals in Portugal. They're a bit more radical than most Liberals in Europe. But they're good people. You know, they work hard. And they've managed to get 8 MPs. And if they went into government with the Liberals, that would be okay. Expected, normal. You know, they'd privatize and they'd liberalize and deregulate, but that's what you guys do anyway, and people would expect that. The issue is they're not enough. They have less MPs, the Democratic Alliance and the Liberals, than us and the rest of the left have put together. And we, for the first time in 2015, teamed up with the rest of the left parties, you know, the communists and the left bloc, and everyone was saying, oh, these guys are the bad guys and they're going to eat children for breakfast and we're going to nationalize everything. And guess what? We didn't, because Socialist Party is a normal social democratic party, like Liberals have coalitioned with throughout the rest of Europe, with normal policies which have encouraged competition, encouraged the market, encouraged growth. And so, you know, it wasn't the boogeyman they came out for. And this is to say that, yeah, we're in a real pickle now. We don't know what we'll do. Because these guys the Social Democrats have a big internal dispute. Some of them want to have a coalition with the Chega, with the far right. Their leader has said no is no. And I hope that he sticks up with his word. Because it was going to be very scary if the far right goes into government, or if they do some sort of parliamentary agreement. But that leaves them in a situation, how are they going to pass a budget? Because nobody expects us, the socialists, with completely different policies to these guys, leading the left bloc, these guys lead the right bloc. Nobody expects us to pass their budgets. It just doesn't happen. It's not a grosser coalition like you have in Germany. We haven't done that for almost 40 years here. We don't want to do it, because if we do it, then the far right is going to be the leader of the opposition. We don't want them leading the opposition. We don't want them to garner up all the people who are discontented with government. It's good for democracy if we are on different sides. And so nobody's expecting us to pass their budgets, and we won't pass their budgets because we have different policies, and that's life. And people have to choose the policies they want. And guess what? They voted for us pretty much the same as they voted for them. And it's going to be, it would defraud our voters if we would pass their budgets. But we're not going to stop them from forming a government. We have said it, you know, we don't have an alternative. We don't have an alternative majority. And so let's let them govern. Let's let them form a government. They put out a program, a manifesto, which was giving money, increasing public spending as much as the left bloc and the communists, and lowering taxes as much as the liberals. And so now let's let them show that it's realistic to give everything to everyone, that they can do it, they can pay the bills. And I hope they can manage to do it. And they'll see how it's really tough to govern, like the liberals and the Social Democrats are seeing together in Germany, how it's tough to make decisions and form agreements. And sure, if they put out good policies, we'll pass their laws. And if they put out bad policies, we'll put them down. But don't count on us to be there, you know, to be their support, to make their governments to make their governments last. We'll let them start their governments. Let's see how they fare out. But we're not going to be their coalition partners. We're not going to be their budget partners. We're going to be the leaders of the opposition. And the next time people are going to vote, they're going to see that the socialists have the best growth policies. The socialists have the best policies to increase wages. They have the best policies for public services. And these promises of everything for everyone were just, you know, promising too much with other people's monies. And liberals know too well that that's not the kind of thing that works anywhere in the world.
Thank you very much, Miguel. That was a true campaign speech. Miguel Costa Matos. After the speech from the representative of the party who lost for a little, very little difference, I must stress again, Maria told it many times, but that's not enough, that there are only 2 seats difference between and yes, but the thing is, there are still 4 seats to be attributed, to be won in the count of the immigrant votes. So maybe if we do this next week, you would be the winner. It can happen. It can happen. So now I give, of course, the floor to the lady who has the victory, although a small victory. Eva, please.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you, IPDAL, for the invitation. You know what? I know that Miguel was very funny, but to be honest, I don't find this situation so funny. And it obviously concerns me. First of all, it is important to say we won the election so far. Actually, it was Pedro Santos, the leader of the Socialists, that said that he lost. So they accepted the defeat. Miguel said it himself, that they accepted the defeat. Yes, it is true. It is a small victory, but we also know that a party that it's populist, that it's extremist, that's all true, but still a right-wing party had a huge increase, which shows us that the people do not want a government from the right wing. This is just true. It is clear that people wanted change, that people wanted a different leader, that people wanted different protagonists in the political sphere. Is this connected, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So it is clear that people wanted change of policies. And for me, what it's interesting to think while Miguel was speaking is how could people, and this works both for the socialists and also for Chega, our right-wing extremist party, which is how can they say that they will vote against a budget that they still do not know? They obviously they know the presented, but they do not know the budget. And they are in advance saying that they'll vote against it, which is something that I don't understand for a clear reason. People give trust to parties and they provide them with mandates. And to be honest, what I believe is that instability or stability does not come from how many mandates each party has, but comes what do they do with the mandates that the Portuguese people provided them with. And I think that a responsible way of performing in politics, it's a reasonable way of deciding. And a reasonable way of deciding is looking at the proposals and deciding if they're good or if they're not good for the people. Because in the end, and this also works both for Chega and both for the Socialist Party, they need to tell the people, to tell the Portuguese people, if when the Social Democrats present a budget that will, for instance, reduce the income tax for people, are they against it or in favor of it? Because both the parties said that they will reduce the income tax during the campaign. So will they now tell the Portuguese people that voted for them with this kind of proposals in their programs that, well, now we disagree, now we don't want to reduce the income tax? Is that what they're going to do? When the Social Democrats present a budget where we provide an aid to the police officers, will they say that they vote against it? That now, contrarily to what they said in the campaign, they disagree with this kind of measure? Will they say, when we present a proposal in the budget to make an actualization in the careers of the teachers, will they say that they are against it? Will they vote against it? All the proposals that during the campaign they told the Portuguese people that voted for them that they were going to do. And you know what? This concerns me because I believe that is this kind of way of thinking to say no just because of where the proposal is coming from and now from what the content and the quality of the proposal has. This is what makes these extremist and populist parties increase. And I spent 3 weeks, a month more or less, in the streets in my district in Lisbon, and I talked to many, many people. And something that was very common was for people to say, you know what, I didn't want to vote for Chega. I believe that they're not going to win. I believe that they will not have a prime minister. They will not have enough power to make the bad things that we know they say and do. And obviously this is concerning. And this is a concern and should be a concern both for the Socialist Party, but also for the Social Democrats. We obviously need to make a reflection, both the traditional parties. Why are Chega increasing? Why are people saying that they don't trust us? And obviously, we had 8 years of socialist government. And in the streets, I had to explain to some people, well, but you know, the state of things, you have to thank the Socialist Party. We were not there. We were not the one deciding. We were not the one having many resignations in the government. It was the Socialist Party. When people told me, with a lot of complaints about everything, about the lack of professors in the schools, about the fact they do not have an appointment in a healthcare system. All the complaints that they said in the streets and complain, well, I had to explain to some of them, well, I'm so sorry to hear that, and we want to make it better, and we feel your pain, and we want to make a difference, we want to change, but unfortunately, that was not our responsibility in the last 8 years. It was the responsibility of the Socialist Party, period. I'm so sorry, Miguel, to tell you this, but it was your fault. But obviously, at the same time, some people said, well, but I think that both of the parties are the same. And to be honest, we need to make this reflection, obviously. How do we explain people that we are different? But in fact, in the end of the night of the elections, we won. So we showed at the same time, we showed people that we were the ones capable and we were the leaders that were able to make a change in the few years that we have had. So to be honest, I think that this speech Miguel did, as if the socialist government was all wonders and we didn't have a huge political crisis and huge instability. It's just funny for me to hear, honestly, because we are now in this situation because we had the prime minister resigning. I think people sometimes forget this, but this happened. A prime minister resigned because we had a lot of issues in justice. This is also concerning. And this is also what is making people vote for an extremist party that no one wants. And Luís Montenegro, the leader of the Social Democrats, made it clear and already said, no is no. We will not have Chega in the government. We will not negotiate with Chega. Luís Montenegro already said this. But now we need a responsible attitude from all the parties. Chega and PS cannot be saying like, well, you have the potato, the hot potato, now deal it yourself. We have nothing to do with you. We don't care. Come on. We have a parliament full of men and full of people. We have many political parties that wanted to lead, then show that you're more concerned with people than you were concerned with having a seat in the government. This is what the parties need to say to people. They need to show. Are they in fact concerned with people? Are they in fact concerned in providing an answer now? Or do they want to bring the country again to a political crisis? I will end. I'm so sorry.
No.
You were looking at me. I thought I
I
had
was
to
just thinking about what you were saying.
So I think there's a lot of water that is still up to be running. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in the circles from the immigrants. But in any case, the Social Democrats will have a posture of dialogue, a constructive dialogue. I think we have 50 years of democracy, and we have the skills and the ability to have a mature democratic posture. I think that parties can talk and arrange good solutions for people, because that's, to finish, the most important thing to do to make people believe in politicians, to make people do not vote in protest. The most important thing to do is to show people that we're focused in providing solutions. We're focused in providing a better life for people. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. Your timing is wonderful. Last 1 minute. Marvelous. After the representative from the Social Democratic, we have another girl, another lady, who is also a new member of parliament. No, she. Yeah, but you're not. You have not been elected. Oh, I'm so sorry. I should go home and study. But she's the vice president of Iniciativa Liberal, which is the Liberal Party here. And please, Anna.
Thank you very much, Inês. Before anything else, let me thank IPDAL and the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for the kind invitation, and everyone here present willing to understand what is going on here in Portugal. And I imagine if I were in your seats, given that we have an important election coming up in Europe and another one in the States, understanding what is happening in this little corner, and having more context to make sense of it is perhaps the most interesting angle that I could help with. A little additional context to add to all the remarks that have already been shared and Maria's brilliant analysis. First, we're coming from almost 9 years of socialist-led governance. 2 of those last years, as Eva mentioned, were an absolute majority, surprisingly met with a lot of political instability. So we saw around, between secretaries of state and ministers, 14 resignations, which is, I think, interesting to study in and of itself. So it was a very politically unstable period, contrary to the great image that Miguel painted here. The fact of the matter is the country has been economically stagnated for more than 20 years. Average salary is one of the lowest in Europe, especially for a country that's been since, we're celebrating 50 years since the Carnation Revolution, so the dictatorship excuse is kind of no longer a good excuse, especially considering that there were countries that were more recently dictatorships that are surpassing us in economic growth and other growing growth indicators, despite those countries obviously having many issues that Portugal fortunately has overcome, but still, that is a very pertinent factor for analysis. What else can I add? On top of this, economic stagnation, we've seen the collapse of public service, again, as Eva reminded us, in health, in education. Portugal, I think, is the second country in the European Union with more lack of teachers distributed for students. I think it was around 50,000 students that didn't have teachers appointed. I mean, this is a country, again, we're in the European Union, we're not used to this sort of
Was me.
Yes, and we've seen, I don't have a memory of seeing the episodes that we've seen recently in our health services. For instance, pregnant women not having an emergency room nearby or maternity to deliver their child in time and dying on the way, especially because we're having, Portugal is one of the fastest aging countries. Actually, no, it's the most fasting aging country in Europe. So people are having children later and later. And so many women are pregnant in their 40s. Not the majority, but still late 30s, 40s. And so not having maternity services available nearby increases their risk both for their child and their life. And we had episodes of women dying on the road in search because they couldn't find a nearby maternity to deliver their child. So this is a sort of episode that we're living after we became used to a different standard in public services. And this was sort of the Socialist Party's main pride, contributing to public services that once made headlines abroad. And now, I'm sorry, after 9 years in power, you are responsible for these consequences, in part, and this Iniciativa Liberal has insisted a lot on this, because you reversed partnerships with private hospitals that worked very well. Yes, out of insistence from one of your partners in governance, your candidate for Prime Minister, Pedro Nuno Santos, actually acknowledged that he wouldn't have a problem of returning to that system that did work in those hospitals, but that was your doing. These are some of the best hospitals we had in Portugal. One of the best I think was in Braga, and it was a case of a public-private partnership. And now it's also reporting a lot of issues in maintaining public health service. One additional note that I think hasn't been mentioned yet, and that was a very surprising, unexpected factor in this election, which is there was the way the ballot was presented left a lot of voters in doubt. And so it's pretty probable that the majority that voted for a party that I think the majority of the country didn't even know, they had a similar acronym to the Democratic Alliance, and the Democratic Alliance did not register the AD acronym on the bullet. So a lot of people voted by mistake, basically. And so we could now be discussing a scenario in which AD plus, or PSD plus CDS plus Iniciativa Liberal had a majority over the left, and Chega did not need to be part of a solution. Sorry, it won't be part of a solution, but it wouldn't be a problem as it is now, right? Well, in the sense that we now need to negotiate with all parties, which is not also a problem. Again, we've just had a period of 2 years of absolute majority, and we had more political instability than in the previous 6 years. So maybe, potentially, everyone is worried, but maybe we might actually achieve some stability. Actually, because, and this is very important to mention as well, as we think of how what are the forthcoming scenarios, there is electional fatigue. I think overall, but especially in this country, because we've had successive snap elections, also instability in after regional elections, and so the party that might be responsible for overturning government is probably going to be penalized in the upcoming election. Maybe the exception could be Chega, because Chega seems to go against the main or expected rules that other parties play by, and like the far right parties in general, right? They can play by different rules and not be as damaged as traditional parties. Some words about Iniciativa Liberal, obviously. Again, for context, we came along, well, we first elected in 2019. That was the first time we ran for parliament, by the way. We elected 1 MP then. In 2022 snap election, we elected 8 MPs, and we maintained that number of seats in parliament after growing our percentage in voting. But because abstention lowered, that did not necessarily translate into more mandates. We also grew across the territories, so we were mainly growing in your urban centers, and now that voting percentage has increased. What can I say more? We were, sorry, I didn't expect to speak for 10 minutes, so
You don't need to speak more.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
Oh, okay. So, okay, one last, thank you. It felt like 2 minutes. Okay, what was I going to say? Okay, in this election, we ran independently against a lot of pressure to join a pre-electoral coalition. I might say quite unfairly, because just a couple of months prior to the government falling, we proposed an electoral reform, a very hard one to reject, because it was just a simple proposal of adding a circle of compensation, because in our previous election we lost 700,000 votes that did not elect any mandate. And so there is a problem with political representation in this country, which is especially cause for some reflection, because we're celebrating, again, 50 years since the Carnation Revolution. And after PSD rejects our proposal, then we receive a lot of pressure, because we were being selfish not to join the pre-electoral coalition, because that would hurt the electoral arithmetic. We were very proud to run, regardless of the risks which we knew existed, because we defended proposals. For a young party, it's very important that, and precisely why we exist as a new party. It's because we represent a new alternative to what has been traditionally offered to the Portuguese electorate. And I would like to, since I should be finishing, just highlight one additional point. We did maintain our seats. We did increase slightly in voting, but the potential vote in Iniciativa Liberal grew considerably. In one study, I think it indicated 20% of voters could vote for Iniciativa Liberal. In a country, I remember when we were starting 2019, people said, you would never go far in Portugal. The country is naturally hostile to liberalism. You'll never go far. And we have not sweetened the pill. We've said exactly what we intended to do. We proposed deep reform. And we've been often called radicals, and gradually the country has come to our side on many issues, including TAP, the national airline, including acknowledging that the country is economically stagnated. We've even had far left parties acknowledging that we need to lower taxes. So I think this is incredible progress. And yeah, okay. Thank you very much for your attention and patience.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. Maria, would you like to, after your brilliant exposing, would you like to make some comments on our speakers' notes?
Yeah, I can be very
Quick,
brief.
please.
Yeah. I'll be very quick. No, just to say that Anna raised a very important point, which is the votes that are wasted in our elections, because 700,000 in the last elections, but also 600,000 in elections where only in terms of, in comparison with Germany or Spain, but there was a high voter turnout. So there was 33%, I think, voter turnout, which meant 6.1 million people, but more than 600,000 votes were wasted, basically, just because of the way votes are counted in Portugal. So a vote in Lisbon counts more than a vote in the center region of Portugal, because there's a DONT method, for those familiar, which uh, which likely increases the chances of the two main parties sitting over there of being elected. That's probably why they rejected it as well, because also it's very tough to open this discussion in the assembly and parliament, because once you open the discussion on changing the law of the vote, of how it's counted, it's probable that the big parties will try to gain advantage of that and change the law in their favor, thus gaining more and more power. So there should be an agreement before revising the law. But yeah, that's definitely, and I was very pleased in the political commentary. We all talked about it. It was very talked about, these elections, which is a new thing as well, because nobody in Portugal recognized it before, or the Social Democrats did once in a while, then they rejected, and they didn't. And yes, that's one of the, and also another thing, ADN. The problem with the ADN, because they're very, very, very far right, but to a point where they're nuts. So they said in one of the debates, they said that they were against the European Union because the European Union was trying to kill all the farmers because cows farted and that produced CO2. But basically that was it, and they even have a big outdoor with a fart of a cow. So I'm not kidding. I wish I was. They had 10,000 votes in the last elections, and they now had 100,000 votes, because people got confused, and that would gain 3 more MPs for the Social Democrats. It would not be as much, unfortunately. They would still fall short of an absolute majority, but that indicates one thing. I saw many people in Portugal shocked about this, and also shocked that Chega got more than 1 million votes. We need to remind ourselves that we are a young democracy. We are 50 years old as a democracy. We started the third wave of democratization. Along with other countries that you mentioned, and so countries that left the Soviet Union and started the process of starting a democracy as well. We only started it 50 years ago. We cannot compare ourselves to other older democracies in Europe. So these things happen. People are, sometimes people get confused. People will vote for ADN to ban cows because, and it's not on purpose, but they will do it thinking they're voting for other party. People will vote for extremists, but so Chega actually managed to decrease to increase voter turnout, which was good. And now we need to get these people and to bring them into democracy, because they've been marginalized, because they've been feeling like the traditional parties don't look at them, and maybe they didn't, and we need to bring them in. But we also need to remind ourselves we're very young, and so we're still very much in time, and these things happen. We cannot blame people, we cannot make fun of them, although it's very tempting. But we do need to bring them in, and I hope this does bring a reflection. Just make that this makes the Social Democrats and the Socialists reflect on what they did, the Liberals as well, all the traditional parties, so that we can bring even more people in to our sphere of democracy and potentially lower the impact that the far right has on our democracy.
Thank you very much, Maria. The thing is, probably there are many and many people who want the great parties to come out and stick with them. And one of the problems, in my opinion, is that the bigger parties stick to their own rules and to their own people. So maybe it's not just a matter of bringing those people in the system, but bringing the big parties out of their usual system. But that's only my opinion. Anyway, we'll now have time for questions. If you please raise your hand and introduce yourself. We'll take one question at a time, and please say who is it directed to. And I have one question. Okay, we'll have two. Okay, 3 questions at a time. One.
Thank you for the IPDAL and also for the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. It's not a question, it's a suggestion, especially for this kind of audience. It will be interesting for the three representatives of different political parties if they could give us some ideas about foreign policy that unfortunately we have not heard a single word on foreign policy during all the 2 weeks of campaign. So maybe that's what I have to suggest. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is João. I'm the president of the Students' Union of IEP, of the Catholic University. My question is to Miguel and PS. Regarding the situation, we know what happened before the election, etc. But my question is, right now, we have a situation which is unbearable, having the far right possibly in the brink of forming a government. Would PS be available to thinking about the stability of the country and the stability of a centrist government and not allowing the far right to become in a government or forming an alliance with whoever it is? Thank you.
Thank you, IPDAL, again, and thank you for your interventions. It is a pleasure to be here, and it was a pleasure to serve IPDAL in last month. I would like just to say, to start, I will be quick, but I have to say that if Socialist Party will consider all the rest of parties radical parties, like Miguel said about Liberal Initiative, and I'm not from Liberal Initiative, and I'm not his lawyer, but we have to say that in these elections, during this campaign, we deal with the most radicalized socialist party ever. We deal with that. So we have to say that. I would like to hear you about the situation of Algarve. And I won't call that people, as we usually say that that people it is fascist, homophobic. No, we can't look to that people with that kind of an eye. We have to go with them. We need to speak with them and to try to understand why they voted for the far right. They have been neglected to the last years. For example, the water problem. It's a simple problem to solve. It's not solved, and we need to resolve that kind of problems. We here in capital we can say, and we can look to the interior regions and call them wherever we want, but we won't solve the problem of radicalization of the South if we look at them with some suspected eyes. No, they are people like us, and we need to understand them. Thank you again, and have a good conference. Thank you.
Okay, I will be fast in my question. One of the things, and it is related to this last one question. My name is Tomás Santos. I'm from a Portuguese European Studies Association, and one of the things that we most see in this election, and beside the results and beside who has the most mandates in the parliament, is the erosion of the traditional parties and the growing of the far right extremist party. And my question is, what do you, the panel, think that is cyclical, that is temporary in the vote and in the bigger expression that they had in this election, and what do you think it is structural in that vote? Thank you.
Many interesting questions here. And I just maybe address the question of the ADN, which is, we had the PS and PSD with only one letter difference for the past 50 years. Somehow they're trying to convince us now that AD and ADN are more confusing than PS and PSD. I'm not very convinced.
AD was not on the ballot. That was what I said.
AD was not on the ballot.
No,
No, that was the thing.
Was written Aliança Democrática.
It was not AD.
But one thing we should not
You really
consider,
think that people unconscious voted for AD?
one thing we should not consider is
100,000.
we have a lot of evangelicals in this country, and a lot of climate deniers and public deniers, which we should bear in mind. But anyway, 4 quick questions. Maria asked about foreign policy. I think there's an advantage, which is we have foreign policy consensus, pro-NATO, pro-European Union. I think where we have some differences is on immigration, in the sense that's a foreign policy issue or not. We have consensus on the Wales commitments of increasing defence spending 2%. I think our main difference is perhaps on enlargement. We'd like to see a year which is more social, which is more advanced in terms of integrating on issues of green policy before we enlarge. But I think the EPP parties have an idea of enlarging first and then maybe seeing how we can integrate more. I think that's the main difference in terms of foreign policy. João asked us about whether we consider the stability of the country. Now it's on. Of course, we consider the stability of the country. That's why we have said we will allow the center-right government to be formed. What we will not allow is for the Socialist Party to be confused as a party that has the same policies and that is integrating the government of the AD. Why? Because we have different policies. We have very different policies on taxation. They focus on corporate taxation. We focus on personal income taxation. We have different policies on public services. We believe on focusing investment on public delivery of public services, whereas AD wants to have more private delivery of public services. We have different policies regarding wages. We believe we should provide a more focused increase of the average wage, which increased 300 euros between 2015 and 2022. The same 300 euros which increased the minimum wage. We believe that there should be an increase in the minimum wage and the average wage at the same pace as they both should increase at the same pace. The center right wants to postpone for 3 years the average wage target. We have a target we have negotiated with the trade unions and with employers of 1,750 euros of an average wage in 2027. AD is pledged to postpone this to 2030. We have very different policies on wages, on public service, on taxation. We're not going to confuse voters by saying we are the same. We are different. And so, it's their responsibility. They didn't manage to lead the opposition. It's their responsibility they have the same percentage points they had 2 years ago. It's their responsibility they have right now the same number of MPs they had 2 years ago. So, they can't pin that on us. And we have to honor our voters. We have to honor our manifesto. And, if that's not enough for them to govern, then tough luck for them. And we'll be here to pass how many laws are necessary that are in the benefit of the people. Don't ask us to vote for things which are against our values and against our program. Then we had the third question, which was Tomás. The third question was about the Algarve, and Tomás was the populists question, the fourth question. About the Algarve, I think we definitely need to look at the far-right voters as normal people who are radicalized by a lack of answers, by too many cases in the justice system, and that feeds a bit into the answer to Tomás' question. Look, Luís Montenegro, the leader of the AD, said a few months ago that the main problem in Portuguese politics was not populism but socialism. And I'm aware that we're used to hearing Donald Trump and Milei say this, but we're not used to see Lindner say this in Germany. We're not used to Rutte saying this. This is the sort of discourse which we see in more radical, liberal or right-wing leaders. We have seen the center-right party begin the campaign on the issues of justice, and then when the leader of a regional government was put into question for judicial criminal charges, suddenly justice stopped being an issue. So we have seen as well the former Prime Minister of the center-right party, Pedro Passos Coelho, say that there was a connection between increased criminality and increased immigration. When we see the center-right feeding into the issues and the tactics of the far-right, when we have seen the center-right consider some of their leaders, some of the vice presidents of their party say, we'll consider a coalition with the far-right party, when we saw them saying, we might vote a vice president of the House of the far-right party, when you see all of these different instances of the normalization of the far-right, which is very different, for example, to the German case, where the CDU has managed to keep a complete sanitary court against AfD. This difference, this clear difference, means that here in Portugal they have normalized the far right. It's a clear difference where now people are not afraid of voting for the far right. And the center-right party is completely to blame for this. And that is part of the reason why now we have more people voting for the far-right parties. How do we fight this? We have to regain the credibility of the democracy. We have to kick out people who are in politics for the bad reasons. We have to increase the fight against corruption. We have to make sure that our policies are answering more people. That's why we have dropped a number of assistentialist policies. We have focused on more universal policies. Universal free school textbooks, universal free childcare, universal cheaper public transportation. That means the middle class is inside the social contract. That means people who constantly feel left behind feel like they are included. And I hope that answers some of your questions.
Very much. I prefer the system of one question, one answer, so we'll stick to it after. But now, Eva, do you want?
So, some notes. First, I wanted to say something about this ADN situation. As Maria and Anna were saying, in fact, the bullet said ADN, and our party said Aliança Democrática. So, and obviously, that was our fault. We have to acknowledge it was our fault. We should have resisted the name of the coalition in a different way. Obviously, should say Aliança Democrática, AD. Clearly, it was our fault. To be honest, I think that no one thought of ADN at that time because it's a very, very small party. And to be honest, I think probably no one thought about it or even imagined that this could be an issue. Yesterday, actually in Sunday, I was thinking, well, this is literally a Black Mirror situation. Do you know the series Black Mirror, where something completely out of the blue happens in a parallel world? I was thinking this. I was like, how is this possible? But they had a growth of 900%. It's huge. In the last election they had, if I'm not mistaken, more or less 10,000 votes. And this time they had more or less 100,000. So this is obviously, this was a mistake that people did. And I even in my Instagram, family of friends, there were a lot of people saying that they were in fact mistaken. I imagine why. How many?
100,000 people made a mistake.
Yes. Yes.
All of them, obviously.
I mean, they had in the last election, they had 10,000. So perhaps not the 100,000, but at least a huge part of these voters were mistaken.
He's convincing, Miguel. You really think he's convincing the leader of APN, talking about the house?
No, and the one, and
You know, there's a huge number of new evangelicals in this country.
no, and the guy
It's not part of the evangelicals.
and the guy that said that we should put all the political prisoners and we should send a lot of people to Tarrafal, which used to be a camp that we had during our dictatorship. So the man is crazy. And he's even more crazy. He's crazier than André Ventura, which is the leader of Chega. So obviously, there were not 100,000 people in Portugal voting for this guy. This was a mistake we did. Now we have to deal with the consequences. It is what it is. But I mean, you know that, I need to say this. You know that this thing that Miguel just did, saying like, well, obviously people did not make a mistake. So normalizing the fact that people vote for the far right parties, this was exactly what they did in the last years regarding Chega. So it's it's incredible, and really it shocks me to hear Miguel. Actually, it doesn't surprise me because they did this, so I imagine they would say this now. But how can Miguel say that we were the ones normalizing sugar, that we were the ones making it normal when we were the ones saying, no, it's no. Perfectly knowing that we might need them to form a government. We were the ones with the courage to say, although we may be in a situation when our life would be much easier to make a deal with sugar, we were the ones saying, no, we do not do that. We will not going to do it. This is called having courage. This is called having ethics. But they were the ones constantly in the television, in the plenary, in everywhere, talking about sugar, increasing the discussion about sugar. So they were the ones, in part, obviously you were not the only ones to blame, but you are also to blame for the increase of sugar. Not only because you kept talking about them, but also because it was a disaster of your 8 years of government that made people feel that nothing works in this country. You were the ones that made people want to make a protest vote. You were the ones making people feel that you... They did. We win. We won. They did. You lost. You passed from 120 deputies to 77. You lost 500,000 votes. 500,000 votes. The Socialist Party lost. So Miguel is with this conversation, but we need to remember this. Miguel.
But you didn't win. That's just it.
We did.
You did. For the moment, they did, Miguel.
Thank you.
Thank.
Sorry, but I also want to say something else. Sorry, I just want to say something else regarding foreign policy. I think it's important to say this. As Miguel was saying, this is true. So, and I think it's a good thing that the two main big parties usually have a consensus in what is our foreign policy. I think it's important for Portugal to stay a credible country and that commits to its duties outside and the commitments that they do. So I think it's a good thing. We also defend an increase of budget for defense. We support the allotment to Ukraine, for instance. We're pro-NATO, pro-European Union, all of that. We also have, and it's interesting because of the context we have in IPDAL. In our program, we had explicitly our commitment to increase and develop our relations with Portuguese people in the United States, but also with the United States. We are concerned putting Portugal in a position of being a bridge to our European partners and being in the center of the trade. It would be great for Portugal if we were able to be this bridge to the rest of the European Union. But and also in immigration, and Miguel was saying about that, but I don't think we disagree. The Social-Democrats, and we had in our program, obviously we want a safe immigration. We want to keep receiving refugees. We were very this is important to say. It was not the government that did the great job we did on receiving refugees from Ukraine, for instance. We had many city councils doing this kind of job. And I need to give this example because, as Gaston was saying, I'm from Cascais, and the city council in Cascais, it's a government of the Social Democrats with the Conservative Party. And we received many refugees from Ukraine. And we are the Social Democrats. So obviously we want a safe immigration and we're pro helping people that need our help. And I need to finish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anna.
And thank you, Ines, for very kindly giving me some time to answer these questions, because Ines kindly asked the audience, perhaps to give a chance to the audience to add some more questions. But I'll try to be brief and just add a few more things. Miguel, you said you were going to reflect on this result, and I really hope you mean that, even if you're not doing that outwardly, inwardly. I really think the worst thing perhaps you did to our country in recent years was really eroding institutional trust. And it was with this kind of discourse. First, you accuse other parties of normalizing the far right when you intentionally stoked the growth of this party, yes, with your Speaker of the House, who, by the way, ironically might lose his seat to a member of Chega. Yes, and by the way, in the north of the country that resisted most the growth of Chega was where AD won more seats, and you lost more seats to Chega. So you're competing directly with Chega. This is kind of irony or karma. But I mean, this is serious. You're trying to, everyone knows that the majority of people made a mistake. Okay, there is not de facto proof, but it is the most obvious explanation based on myriad factors that we can analyze. Why even go there? Seriously, what does this contribute to public discourse? Which is probably, it's the erosion of public discourse at most, and I really believe this, it is the erosion of trust in institutions, information institutions, academic institutions, political institutions, that the far right is growing, not just in Portugal, but everywhere. And traditional parties have a massive responsibility in this. So, sorry, I got a bit carried away there. I feel this deeply.
We're fine.
Yes, okay, so I'll try to address quickly the questions you posed. In Algarve, an interesting thing that I haven't seen the concrete data yet, but we received reports that there were many voters that were voting for the first time, people who obviously had chances to vote before. So I think that's very interesting given the results that we now know happened there. It's obviously a very touristic region. I mean, the population that stays there all year is low density, but then increases a lot during touristic seasons. And then there's a lot of immigration because of the tourist sector, and that might be a factor. Obviously, this is all very fresh and we need to look into it, but maybe receptivity to Chega's discourse and a lot of disappointment with the Socialist Party, including for factors, for instance, they had a hospital there that was promised to them for years and never got built, for instance. And it is a region that I think feels one of the regions that feels most forgotten in the country. So maybe this helps to explain that result. Transitory vote. I'm leaving a lot of things out, obviously, but I'm trying to be brief. I don't know. I think that, I mean, some interesting data that I don't think have yet been mentioned. 60% of people in a recent polling before the elections said they wanted change. The question was what change, because 15 to 20% of people were undecided up to at least 2 days prior to the election. So, yeah.
They decided when voting.
Yeah, exactly. So this means, in part, the way I read it is there's a clear insatisfaction with the party in power, but there was also not a clear preference for an alternative, or there were many doubts. And that is concerning. So people are kind of like shuffling everything into the same bag and saying, okay, I really don't see a difference here, right? And that's very serious, and that's cause for all parties to reflect on. Okay, I'll finish very quickly. Foreign policy. There was a lot that I wanted to say, but okay. Foreign policy. Iniciativa Liberal, first of all the utmost support for any region, obviously, that is under threat to self-determination. Ukraine, we immediately stood behind Ukraine without a hint of a doubt as soon as that conflict started. Strong supporters of Ukraine joining the European Union. We've been very insistent on drawing attention to China. We've tried to bring that to the center of the debate many times without many traction, and I hope that changes, especially now that political forces have shifted. This is a very serious issue. Portugal is a very susceptible country to Chinese influence, and obviously we are for international trade, but we need to carefully analyze this, and we need to have a public debate about this. Also, obviously, severely critical of Putin's Russia, and I think since we have a European election coming, I would like to see, especially now that we're all concerned with the growth of the far right, a public awareness that many of the parties in ID are pro-Putin, And I think people really need to, I don't think the majority of the population in Europe are really aware of this. And even though Chega says, because here Russia and Putin is highly unpopular, but because he has many people in his party that are pro-Putin, but he's very clearly said that his party is not. But the fact of the matter is, voting for Chega in the European elections is giving power to a political group that favors, or that has a lot of people in favor of him. Yes, thank you.
Not Russia, but Putin.
Putin, yes.
Thank you very much. We'll have two questions. One, yes, please, Bruno.
Thank you. So my name is Bruno. I have two very quick questions. Although I belong to a party, my questions is personal. I belong to a party a little bit like this house. It's a private club. So my first question is to Miguel, and allow me to do this analogy. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she asked me quite a lot to go out at night. I always say yes. But I have to accept the destiny. I always say no to the destiny. So it seems like a little bit like what you're trying to say. You, of course, you give power to this government, but you will not go along with the policies in the budget sector. So you probably are saying the same thing I do. Despite I say yes to go out, then I say no to the destination. So she stays home anyway. So it seems a little bit like what you're doing. I would like your comment on that. And also, to Eva, you said that there is a party that no one wants. And from the numbers I see, 1,100,000 people want. So that's a question that I want to make to you also, because I understand the fundamentals. I understand the view that we have, but maybe it's not the view of the country, and how we're going to overcome that. Thank you.
Will it be good for democracy if instead of having a block of the left and a block of the right, instead of the two main parties being government and opposition, they came together into government? I'm not sure that would be good for democracy, because that would make both parties too much the same, and also it would make the far right the leaders of the opposition. The last time we had a big growth in institutional trust in our country was immediately after 2015, when we changed the government, we stopped austerity, and we reversed the cuts. And if you look at the Eurobarometer results, you'll see that trust in parliament, trust in government, went through the roof. It increased. And so, yeah, okay, they can say we destroyed trust in institutions, but when we came into government, we recovered them. And we recovered them because we were different to these guys. And I think the main thing we have to preserve is that voters have a choice. It's them or us. And if we let them pass their budgets against what are our policies, against what 1,750,000 people voted for, that would be betraying the trust of a lot of people, and it would be denying them that alternative. And so, you know, if this is what voters voted for, and if they can't manage to form a stable government with that, then I guess voters need to have the voice again. But don't ask us to betray the trust of our voters and to betray our values, because when we do that, that's the beginning of the erosion of institutional trust and trust in democracy.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for the question. And actually now, thinking about the sentence exactly the way I said it, I think I can conceive that it was badly put, because it's when I say nobody wants that, I was speaking about this audience that I presume does not want a leader from a far-right party. I didn't mean the whole country, because obviously there's 1 million people that we cannot ignore. But I have two things that I have to address about this. The first one is, I talked with many people. I was 1 month running the district. Obviously, I do not have the sense of what happens in the rest of the country, because I was only in my district of Lisbon. But all these people, there was a very frequent and common comments regarding Chega. People said often that they didn't want them to win. And this, I'm not just saying this for the plot and for the conference. This is real. People told me a lot. Well, but you know, but they will not have the strength to win. Like they will not have the strength to make those things that they say they do that are crazy, that people do not like. And I had to explain to some people, well, but you know, if you vote for them, they will have a power to influence other parties. And this is a concern. So to be honest, I'm not sure if that 1 million people want Chega to actually have this kind of power. Obviously, there will be some of them that want Chega to be in a government, but I really believe that there's a huge percentage of that people that do not wish that. They just wanted to show a pro-state vote. I also heard many times a different sentence that was, well, you know, I'm not happy about voting Chega. I'm voting Chega, but I'm not happy about it. If I had another option, obviously they did, but they didn't feel like it. If I had another reliable or an option that I would really like, then I wouldn't vote for Chega. I even had this situation in a dinner with my friends. People saying like, well,
I can control myself.
30 the charm. So this is to say that although I believe that many people really wish to see Chega in government, and there's another issue that I need to address, which is the fact that they are pro-life. And the fact that CDS, or the Conservative Party, left the parliament also gave some room for the people that used to vote for the Conservative Party, and for whom those kind of matters, that the pro-life matters, are very, very important. They only feel truly represented in Chega because Chega defends this kind of topics. And I believe that some of these people, well, for me, other kind of topics are in the balance of things are more important. But for many people, these kind of issues are above any economic issue, any other thing. And this is valid. So I think this is also a reason why Chega is increasing. And I had many friends saying this directly to me. So I'm not saying that nobody wants them, but I do believe that many people, and especially if Chega will reject the budget, or if the socialists reject the budget, and if we have to go to elections again, this is just my personal opinion, I do believe that Chega will have a huge decrease, because people will understand now that voting Chega is useless. People will understand that it's just another vote in the Socialist Party, which is something we said often in the campaign, because it's true. So I don't know. I think they're not true Chega voters. They do not really want Chega. But I might be mistaken, but this is what I sense from talking to people.
Thank you, Eva. I will now have the last question, but I would really like to thank you very much, because I know this is very hard for you both, because it's all very fresh and quite unknown. So thank you again for being here and for the wrestling. Diogo.
Thank you. My name is Diogo Belford. I work public affairs at Cunha Vaz and Associados. And so this was a great debate, especially if you had campaign hangover, because you got an extra shot of it. But assuming that we already know the differences between your parties, and that of all of you, one still has responsibilities of government, one is expected to assume responsibilities and be nominated of government, and another one is possibly a privileged partner of that new government, at least in a parliamentary support. My question would be, if you would like to end this session with some words of confidence, since as you are in a room full of Portuguese and foreign diplomats, of Portuguese and foreign businesses, and foreign investors, if you would consider the possibility to have some words of confidence in the institutions, in the Portuguese economy surviving this discussion, in maybe other institutions which were not talked about, and even in public policies, like very well Miguel and Eva talked about in foreign policy, if other areas which can be crucial for many of the people here will be writing reports home. Maybe they could have something also extra to say. Thank you so much for the discussion.
We'll still have one more question.
Yes. Thank you very much. So, my name is Jose. I'm from Chega. I would love to have a huge debate with all of you about what is extremism and what is far right. I think we are confusing them, and I would like to address the center right and the center left about the history of the Peter and the Wolf. And sometimes we can be creating something really, really worse than it is Chega. And I would like to remind the historical reasons of sorry.
Is it? Okay, sorry. But I will not start. I think it was pretty clear. So I was just saying that I would like to remind both center left and the center right about the history of the Peter and the Wolf. And I think sometimes we want to create ghosts, and the ghost really appears really far and worse than it is. Chega is a right-wing party, and I think in Portugal democracy, for historical reasons, we never had a proper right-wing party. And the question about the foreign policy, just a small point, Chega is pro-NATO and pro-European Union, so it's true that we are from part of the ID, but most of the ID parties right now are not supportive of Putin. That's a wrong information. Sorry, but I will let that discussion for later. The liberal vice president said that there are few.
In fact, André Ventura even yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. In the interview, said this pro-Ukraine. Yeah.
No, absolutely
yeah.
against Putin.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not representing Chega today, so I will just make my question.
I'm very sorry to interrupt.
No worries. It's absolutely fine. So I think later we can discuss that. But I have one question for Eva. It's about the what we say winning or not winning. And for the first time, I think I would agree with Miguel. When you arrive on the parliament, both PST and CDS will split into different parliamentary groups. And right now, you have the same number of MPs than the Socialist Party. So do you really consider that did you win the elections in Sunday? That's my question. And you spoke about the pro-life issues, and you spoke about the difference between the Social-Democrat and the CDS. So do you really consider that you really won the election after everything that happened, after 8 years of Socialist Party, after everything? Do you consider that a win? So I would like to answer that. Thank you.
So I was in fact mistaken. There's at least one person in this room that wants Chega to lead. So you just proved me wrong. To be honest, I mean, we run as a coalition. We were not making an arrangement after the elections. We run as a coalition. So yes, I see it as a victory because there were two parties, in fact 3, but 2 with now representation in the parliament. There were 2 parties that run together with the same program, who negotiated what was to be the program, and they were comfortable with the program. And although there are going to be 2 different groups in the parliament, they are together, and they share views, they share policies, they share a posture regarding democracy and regarding the next 4 years. We don't know if it's going to be 4, but at least 4 years. So no, I don't see how you think that the fact that we have deputies from CDS means that we did not win. I mean, I don't see how that is a problem. We trust our partner, and I believe in our partnership. So we're very comfortable with it, as we always had, and we have a lot of coalitions throughout the country in city council. So that is not an issue. It was a pre-election coalition for some reason, and it provides an extra confidence. So I still see it as a victory, and I don't see any issue about it. But I also wanted to add that confidence word that were asking us. Although this is, I think this is important to say. As Inês was saying, this is all very fresh. The elections were on Sunday. Today is Tuesday, so it's very fresh for everyone. We all need to stop a little, reflect a bit more. I think we'll have some time to do it, but I think that and this is something that I believe personally, despite this wrestling, as Inez was saying, of parties. I do believe that most people that are in political parties, and especially the ones that will have mandates in the parliament, they are well intentioned. People want a better Portugal. We probably no, definitely, we sometimes disagree on the path to achieve a better Portugal. We sometimes disagree on what we believe it's a better Portugal, but I really believe that people are well intentioned. So I think a confidence word that I can provide you all is that, in one hand, I do believe that the parties, or at least I hope, parties will be responsible. And although now we have this kind of conversation because this is all fresh, I do believe that in the time of choosing, knowing perfectly that the people that voted for them will be watching, I believe that all the parties will know what to do and will be responsible. And from our part, from the Social Democrats, where I can assure you is that we are going to have a positive posture, that we're going to be in dialogue with all the other parties, that we're going to have a constructive posture, that we're going to be committed to the program we presented during our campaigns and presented to the Portuguese people. But most importantly, that we'll look for stability, that we'll look to give answers to people and to companies and to foundations and to other countries. So I think that at least to the Social Democrats, to AD, you can trust that we have, will always been a trustworthy party, a trustworthy government, as will always been. And I also want to close by saying, because we are in a place with a lot of companies from different countries, in our debate, in all the debates during the campaign, the AD often said, and we kept by saying this, we said often, well, we want big companies, we want big or small or medium, we want companies from other countries to come to Portugal. We said we want to reduce tax for it to be advantage for companies, for foreign companies to come to Portugal. So we do not have any kind of complex with small, medium, or big companies, foreign companies. The guy here next to me has a little, but we do not. So we can be confident that we'll have a government that it's open to the world, that it's open to other partners. So trust us. Let's wait to see the next chapters. And I think this is my final word. So I just want to thank you for the invitation to the foundation and to IPDAL to be here. It was a lovely conversation, and I really enjoyed being here, although in this hangover. But it was great. Thank you so much for all the questions, and I think we had a great and healthy dialogue today.
Thank you very much, Eva. And now, Anna, I skipped you a moment ago. Yeah,
Okay.
2 minutes.
Again, I'll try to be brief. Is this on? Thank you. Okay, so there was one question that I didn't get to address. I'll start there. Someone asked about the 1 million voters who voted for Chega and their significance. I think that is one of the most important questions we have to think about, not just in Portugal, because this is happening everywhere, especially considering that abstention lowered. So many people who were engaged to vote in protest. I mean, part of the reason is obviously discontent and fear, but also I think there is I think there are general trends in modern democracies that I think have to do with plenty of factors. And we perhaps, as both traditional forces and new forces who respect the traditional rules of the game, we need to think whether those rules are adjusted to current challenges our countries are facing. What do I mean by this? There is a technological revolution underway. There is war, signs of war that we did not expect to see in our lifetimes, very close to home. Suddenly, I ask everyone in this room, how many times in recent years did we think, I did not expect to live to see this? This is unprecedented, or this is unprecedented for my generation. So everyone has a sense that we are going into more and more unfamiliar territory, and that what we took for granted is at stake. And in such an environment of insecurity, people are open to things that they didn't consider previously, especially if they're angry. And especially, and this is, I think, not the exclusive factor, but certainly one of the most important and the main one, perhaps, that political parties need to reflect on, which is people have lost trust in those parties. People don't see a solution in those parties. Obviously, the majority of people are not yet voting for the far right, but if we want to learn from this, we need to take that in. So maybe it's not their discourse or what they're proposing, certainly not what they're proposing, because in Chega's case, I mean, there are more ideologically coherent parties, far-right parties in other countries. That's not the case of Chega here. They will say anything to get power. And I don't even want to think of what they will do to keep power, now that they've achieved some of it. So this is very serious, and we all need to really take it seriously and stop with the political games. One more quick question for Diogo. I'll try to be brief, especially because Eva, I don't want to repeat what Eva said, but yes, I think there is an affinity between Iniciativa Liberal and the Social Democrats. We definitely have the same priorities in mind. We are more ambitious than the Social Democrats, and we promise to be a push for deep reform that the country profoundly needs. And we'll do our utmost. I think political stability is a priority, and responsible leadership is a priority. I think these are very, very serious times here and abroad, and it's time to take responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna. And now Miguel.
Thanks. And thank you everyone for this excellent debate. To answer Diogo's question, well, we won't have political stability because the center-right coalition failed to obtain more percentage of votes and failed to obtain more seats. And so the situation we have is definitely a hard situation. But the good news is we will have economic and social stability. We have left the country growing 10 times more than it did the 15 years prior to our government. We have had a record increase in foreign direct investment. We have increased the minimum and the average wage by 300 euros. We have made an agreement with trade unions and employers associations to increase wages in the private sector and in the public sector. And so we have a balanced budget, and our debt is below 100% of GDP. So whatever happens in the next few months, we have good news for the country. The country is stable and is prospering economically and socially. And the center-right has an option. They either team up with the far right to destroy all of this stability and investment which we have managed to bring together, or things will stay this steady course. And luckily, if no means no is an honest word, then luckily the country will continue to thrive and will continue to support the investments of all your countries in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. It was really a pleasure. Thanks our host for inviting us. And last word.
I have a little discourse. Half an hour? No. No, Maria, Anna, Ines, pardon? Eva, of course, Eva, and Miguel. Thank you so much for this fantastic and enlightening discussion. I think for everybody who's not residing in Portugal, it was incredibly insightful, and we learned so much. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, really, that you did this for us in English, because this is far from normal, and I think in Germany it would be really difficult to have a discussion with politicians on this level of English. Fantastic, thank you so much. And you wanted a sign of hope. The gentleman wanted to sign a sign of hope. I think if you, yeah. And I think listening to you and seeing you debating, I have a lot of hope for Portugal's political future. I think both from the analytical and journalistic point of view, but also from the machine room in politics. I think Portugal has a great future because you guys are running the country. And then I also wanted to say that is a fantastic picture. Miguel, you're going to excuse me, but 4 days after the 8th of March, International Women's Day, to have so many fantastic women debating and enlightening us is also a fantastic sign. Thank you so much. Muito obrigado. And then I have a good news. We waited a little bit longer for the dinner, but in the program it says it's a flying dinner. But we found an airport for the buffet, and it has landed now. And there's an ordinary, like a normal buffet waiting for us downstairs on the ground floor. So thank you so much again for coming. Thank you so much, IPDAL, Paulo, Gaston, and Manuel, and see you downstairs.